AI. It's everywhere, right? In our phones, in our cars, it's all over the news. But what if I told you the story of how that name came to be is, well, it's kind of wild. And it all starts with a secret. Yeah, that's the secret. The twist is, the very people who came up with the name artificial intelligence, they didn't even like it. Sounds nuts, right? But it's absolutely true.
And that's really the core paradox here. This name, this term that basically defines our modern world, wasn't some grand visionary moment. Nope. It was a practical choice, and one that its own creators thought was, well, not great.
I mean, think about it. Their whole mission, the thing that got them excited, was to create genuine intelligence. Not something fake, not something artificial. They wanted the real deal. So, why on earth would you name your life's work something that sounds like the exact opposite? All right, to figure that out, we've got to meet the people who were in the room. And this whole thing really kicks off with one guy, a brilliant and surprisingly young scientist. And that man was John McCarthy. If you know AI history, you know this name. He's one of the founding fathers, and he's the one who literally put pen to paper and wrote down the words artificial intelligence for the very first time. And here's the kicker. When he did this, when he came up with the name that would change everything, he was just 28 years old. Can you imagine? Just 28, an assistant professor of math at Dartmouth, but already completely obsessed with this idea of making machines think.
So, McCarthy knew this was way too big a project to tackle on his own. He needed a team, and not just any team. He assembled an absolute dream team of the brightest minds of his day. We're talking Marvin Minsky from Harvard, Nathaniel Rochester from the giant IBM, and the legend himself, Claude Shannon from Bell Labs. Together, they drafted a really, really important proposal.
What they proposed to the Rockefeller Foundation was a mission, a plan. They called for a 2-month, 10-man study of artificial intelligence. And this study, planned for the summer of 1956, would become the legendary Dartmouth Workshop. It's basically seen as the official birthday of the entire field of AI.
Okay, so this brings us right back to the big question, right? We know these guys were aiming for genuine intelligence. So why did McCarthy pick a name that he and pretty much everyone else on his team wasn't even crazy about?
I mean, that's the whole puzzle, isn't it? If you want the real thing, why brand your entire movement with the word artificial? Well, the reason wasn't some deep philosophical debate. It was political. You know, McCarthy himself was super straightforward about it later on. He basically said, I had to call it something, so I called it artificial intelligence. It's so pragmatic, right? It wasn't about finding the perfect name, it was just about needing a name. But there was a little more strategy to it than just that. See, here's the thing. McCarthy wasn't working in a vacuum. He had to create a unique identity for this new idea. There was already another big, popular field that was kind of in the same ballpark, and he needed to make it crystal clear that what he was doing was something totally new and different. In that rival field, it was called Cybernetics. It was a huge deal back then, pioneered by a guy named Norbert Wiener. It was all about control and communication in animals and machines. A pretty broad topic, but McCarthy's vision was laser-focused. He wanted to concentrate on just one thing: making machines actually think. So calling his project artificial intelligence was a brilliant strategic move. It was a way to plant a flag and say, hey, over here, this is new turf.
And you know what? It worked. His practical political choice gave the field a name, an identity, but nobody could have predicted the legacy those two little words, artificial and intelligence, would have. It's a legacy that is, well, super complicated and one we are all living with right now.
So even though it was a practical decision, don't think for a second the words themselves were random. They were actually chosen very carefully. And if we break them down, we can see exactly why this term has been so powerful and, honestly, so controversial. Okay, so let's take the first word, artificial. This part was pretty simple. It was just there to make it clear that this kind of intelligence was manufactured, man-made. It wasn't the kind that grows naturally in people or animals. But the second word, intelligence. Now this was the stroke of genius. McCarthy was incredibly smart about this. He left it super broad, totally vague, and completely undefined. Why would he do that? Because even though scientists can't agree on a perfect definition, pretty much everyone has a gut feeling for what intelligence is. It made this high-tech concept feel instantly relatable.
And that ambiguity, that deliberate vagueness, it ended up being both the best thing and the worst thing for the field of AI.
It was a blessing because, hey, with a vague definition, the field could explode in a million different directions. It could mean anything from a chess program to the large language models we have today. But it's also been a curse because we are still fighting about what true AI really is. That whole debate we're having right now, it goes all the way back to that one word McCarthy chose not to define back in 1955.
So it all comes back to where we started. This whole field was kicked off by scientists who didn't even like the word artificial because they were chasing something genuine, which really makes you wonder, right? When you look at the AI all around us today, is this what they were dreaming of, or is it something else entirely?